Thank you all so much for being here with us this morning. We are going to start our program. Welcome to the St. Paul River Center and good morning. Welcome to Fresh Energy's 9th annual benefit breakfast. My name is Justin Fay and I'm the Senior Lead for Public Affairs and Advocacy here at Fresh Energy. In my role, I have the good fortune of guiding our strategic advocacy and ensuring that our staff are engaged in and helpful to state and local decision makers as we work to tackle the unprecedented threat of climate change. And after nearly 6 years at Fresh Energy, I finally made it on stage at the breakfast. What a privilege. As we gather this morning, I want to start by recognizing that we're holding this event on the ancestral and contemporary homeland of the Dakota people overlooking the mighty Mississippi. We also want to acknowledge that in this time of extreme weather, armed conflict, and global turmoil, many people are struggling in profound ways. Our thoughts are with individuals around the globe experiencing loss, violence, and displacement, as well as those here in our community that are suffering. Whether this is your first event with Fresh Energy or you've been plugged in with us for a while, we're so grateful that you've chosen to spend your morning with us. I'd also like to welcome our virtual guests from all over the country. We're glad that you're here too. And this year we even have a few watch parties being hosted by board members and donors tuning in from Bemidji, Duluth, Rochester, and Grand Marais. Thank you for joining us. What do you folks think? Can we give our virtual guests a round of applause to welcome them? We're here today because we all care deeply about an equitable, clean energy future where everyone can thrive. And also because we want to find and create hope together, which is so critical at this crucial moment. Through our work, we're striving to prevent the worst impacts of climate change by fully decarbonizing our economy by mid-century. And it's more important than ever, as we've seen over the past week with the horrific aftermath of Hurricane Helene, and tragically in real time with events in Florida and Hurricane Milton, making the stakes of this work abundantly clear. We really are in the decisive decade. The actions we take now, between now and 2030, really will determine our future. Fresh Energy has been able to drive unprecedented change at the Minnesota Public Utilities Commission, our state agencies, and at the Minnesota Legislature. And that's thanks to you. Together, we've achieved milestones like passage of the 100% clean electricity law. That's right. Accelerating Minnesota's commercial and residential building codes. Yeah. You're my people. I love a room that applauds for building codes. Can we get a round of applause for new funding for geothermal systems? Yeah. How about our biggest applause of the light of the morning? It's not night, it's morning. Biggest applause of the morning for our long overdue update to permitting for clean energy projects. Yay. Fresh Energy's work in support of these shared accomplishments has been done entirely under the auspices of a fully nonpartisan organization. Of course, we have an election coming up, and Fresh Energy encourages everyone to make their voice heard by voting and participating actively in our democratic process. And early voting is now open wherever you live in Minnesota. Can I get a show of hands? Who in the room has already voted? Awesome. How about applause for early voting? If you're here today, you probably are a voter. But maybe you know people in your life that could use a reminder. In fact, I promise you know people in your life that would benefit from a reminder. So please make sure that your friends and family have a plan to vote by November 5th. We really have an exciting program for you this morning. I hope when you leave today and head to work or back home that you feel inspired and energized by what's possible, like you have partners in hope and action as we look ahead to Minnesota's clean energy future. If you're curious about what's in store on our agenda this morning, check out page 2 of your program. And don't forget to use #FreshBreakfast when tweeting or sharing photos on social media. Before we dive in, I'd like to acknowledge the many current state and local elected and appointed leaders that have registered to join us this morning. Thank you for being here with us. We appreciate your service and your public support for Minnesota's clean energy future. Thank you also to Fresh Energy's board members, who give so much of their time and expertise to support Fresh Energy's work, and for the past year, in addition to their normal duties, have been committed to helping guide the formation of Vision 2030, Fresh Energy's strategic framework. We'll be talking more about that later on in the program. I'd also like to recognize Ted Kontag, our benefit breakfast event chair and board member, who has been instrumental in making this breakfast a success. His leadership and dedication to giving back and helping the community to be generous and make a deeper impact is inspiring. Thank you, Ted. I also need to take a moment to thank the multitude of businesses and individuals who have sponsored and supported this event. Because of their generosity in underwriting our breakfast, all gifts today will go entirely towards Fresh Energy's mission of shaping and driving bold policy solutions to achieve equitable, carbon-neutral economies. Thank you to our energy access and equity sponsor, RAR. RAR is a family-owned company that was built on a commitment to sustainability and is dedicated to supporting solutions for a clean energy economy. Thank you to our Fair of the Future sponsor, Great River Energy. Great River Energy is a not-for-profit electric cooperative and is committed to providing affordable, reliable, cleaner energy to its members. We are grateful for the partnership and support of our VIP meet and greet sponsors, Best Buy, Ecolab, Enterprise Energy, Minnesota Power, Mortenson, Spark Fund, Wolf River Electric, and Xcel Energy. We are exceptionally appreciative of all of our sponsors. Without the additional support from our Clean Energy Champion and Friends of the Future sponsors, today's breakfast would not be possible. And of course, we cannot forget our table captains. You worked hard to bring people together for this event, and we're so grateful for the time you took to invite colleagues, friends, family, and beyond to join us in creating a clean energy future for Minnesota and the Midwest. You truly are making an impact by bringing more passionate supporters to Fresh Energy. We have some match pool sponsors I'd like to recognize. Because of their generosity, every gift today of $250 or more will be matched dollar for dollar up to $156,000. That's right. Here's a chance to double your impact, so I challenge the room to max out this match. And finally, we want to take a moment to thank our title sponsor, Parable Wealth Partners. While Parable's expertise is rooted in helping individuals and families navigate complex decisions like how to generate income in retirement or what to do when you receive restricted stock units, stock options, or other forms of equity compensation, they offer a fresh take on wealth management. Parable helps clients grow their true wealth, wealth that goes beyond dollars and cents. Discover more by watching this.
Defined by finances alone is limiting. At Parable, we're expanding the story of wealth. Because true wealth is made of more than just dollars and cents. It's in the passions we nurture and grow, and the joy of sharing those gifts with the world. Let's discover a different story together, a story about wealth and all its expressions. Discover more at parablewealth.com.
Thanks again to Parable for their generous support of Fresh Energy. We could not do this without you. Lastly, I wanted to remind everyone that our Fair of the Future will continue until 11 a.m. this morning. Out in the lobby are electric vehicles, options on how to electrify your home with a heat pump or induction cooktop, e-bikes, clean energy vendors, and more. Take a look at your program for more details. And with that, I am pleased to welcome to the stage our next speaker, Fresh Energy's Executive Director, Dr. Brenda Cassellius. Welcome, Brenda.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning, everyone. So so great to see everybody here this morning. I am just so thrilled to be here at Fresh Energy's 9th annual benefit breakfast, and of course, my 2nd annual breakfast. So just so great to be here. Thank you, Justin, for introducing the day. Before I dive in, I'd like to recognize the many important organizations and partners that we have here at Fresh Energy that collaborate with us and help make this work possible. So there's too many to name, and I don't want to leave anyone out, but if you're in the room this morning, it would mean a lot to us if you would just stand up really quickly so that we could give you a round of applause too, because no one does this work alone. So if you are a partner with Fresh Energy, please just briefly stand up and let's give you a round of applause. I know there are more than them in this room. Thank you all. Thank you all. Today is so much more about all of us and not just about Fresh Energy, but the incredible work that we all do together, which just, it couldn't be done and it couldn't be possible, and certainly wouldn't be as much fun without the thought leadership and collective actions of all of us. And over the next few minutes, it's my job to share with you a bold vision for the future, what we're calling Vision 2030, Fresh Energy Strategic Framework. See, we believe that a just and prosperous and resilient future powered by clean energy is, in fact, possible. A belief we share with our amazing guest speaker, Dr. Ayana Elizabeth Johnson. We have everything we need to equitably decarbonize the economy. We just need the right policies, paired with action to make it happen. And by being here today, you're all demonstrating your commitment to being part of the solution as we work side by side in this critical decade. Many of you in the room have been Fresh Energy's friends for many years and know firsthand that we have been leading the way for over 3 decades. I want to give a shout out to my friend Michael Noble and J. Drake Hamilton, who are here with us today. Without their vision, courage, and expertise, Fresh Energy would not be what it is today. Let's give them a big hand. At Fresh Energy, we are proud to have scientists, economists, policy analysts, physicians, attorneys on our staff. We don't just support change, we research, we write, and we advocate, sometimes taking on the toughest policies, even in opposition, to make progress. We don't take lightly the part we play in this space, and we are humbled and honored to be called on for our expertise and our leadership from regulators, decision makers, foundations, the media, and other climate champions. Over the past 30 years, the energy landscape has vastly changed, and so has the social and political landscape. The work is much more complex, complicated, and challenging. There are no easy solutions, and that means not shying away from the hard things. So I'm here to assure you that in our new strategic framework, Fresh Energy is leaning into our core values: courage, optimism, responsibility, and equity, which is center and grounds our work in every decision that we make, in every action. Over the past year and a half, I've had the honor to meet so many of you and to hear from many important partners and climate champions. One of them, a very special friend of Fresh Energy, is Sarah Clark. Where are you, Sarah? Wave your hand. Give her a hand applause. Sarah facilitated the process and worked with our staff. I think sometimes I talk to Sarah almost every day, multiple times a day. And our amazing board chair also, Dr. Jackie Johnson, who's sitting here with me, alongside the entire Fresh Energy board, to develop this exciting new 5-year strategic framework. We just couldn't have done this without their leadership. What a wonderful team of people who are committed to Fresh Energy and climate solutions. Having a year to plan gave us the time to hear from so many folks, many of you right here in the room, that kept our vision alive. and kept equity front and center because we believe an equitable transition is possible. And as the politics might have some questioning their strategy on diversity, equity, and inclusion, we wanted you all to know that Fresh Energy stands firm on our commitment to racial and economic justice and equity. We have worked hard as a team to ensure it is beautifully woven throughout our strategic framework and embedded in Fresh Energy's DNA. Our past commitments stay strong in this new framework, and Fresh Energy's formula for success will continue to focus on policy and regulatory action in renewable energy, buildings, and transportation. And this morning, we're excited to share that we will be expanding in 2 areas further and deeper: agriculture and heavy industry, 2 emerging sectors critical to Minnesota's economy and meeting our 2050 goals. I sure hope I've captured your curiosity to learn more about Fresh Energy and the exciting pathway forward, and that you're excited as we are. Our Vision 2030 will be presented to the full board of directors next week for final approval, but they agreed we could share a sneak peek with you this morning. Because nothing's better than sharing something with your friends that you're proud of. So now let's take a closer look and watch a short video that matches our commitment and our ambition for clean energy future in Minnesota and the exciting ways we look forward to working with all of you to achieve this vision together. When it comes to fighting the climate crisis, the changes we make by 2030, both in our policies and our actions, will have monumental impact. For more than 3 decades, Fresh Energy has been leading the way on energy and climate solutions. We know that our state can be a clean energy leader. What we do here in Minnesota has the power to move the Midwest, the country, and the world toward a clean energy future. But what does Minnesota's path to a carbon-free future look like? The answer is our Vision 2030, Fresh Energy Strategic Framework, which solidifies our climate ambition and dedication to equity while also creating a roadmap for driving down emissions within 5 crucial areas: electricity, buildings, transportation, heavy industry, and agriculture. Building upon our current work within these areas will help prevent the worst impacts of climate change. Our work on the electricity sector is focused on moving closer to a future where our homes and our businesses, manufacturing, and beyond are powered by 100% carbon-free electricity. Fresh Energy is driving down emissions from electricity by expanding wind, solar, and storage, building the grid of the future, and advocating for affordable, reliable, and modern rate designs that ensure no one is left behind. Heating and cooling our buildings efficiently and effectively comes with challenges, but electrifying where we live, work, and play is critical. We're decarbonizing the building sector by creating policies that move us beyond natural gas and help electrifying our heating and cooling with tools like heat pumps. Fresh Energy is cutting emissions from our buildings by making it easy to electrify, ensuring energy burden inequities are addressed, improving health and safety, and spurring market transformation with the creation of new family-supporting jobs. The way we transport people and things is an important piece of the puzzle. We're working to reduce emissions from the transportation sector through bold policies that create more clean and affordable choices. Fresh Energy is keeping equity central to our transportation work as we consider the health impacts of emissions as well as strategies for making electric transportation and charging more accessible, affordable, and reliable. Minnesota is an important agricultural leader, and Fresh Energy is helping grow this legacy by ensuring the agricultural sector is part of our energy transition. We are shaping climate-smart policies that build up our state's rural economies, provide revenue streams for farmers, and improve water and air. This includes establishing our state as a model for local production and rural economic development in green fertilizer. We're also taking on reducing emissions from heavy industry, a big economic driver in Minnesota. There are new opportunities and innovations that we must work with partners to bring to our state. For example, Fresh Energy is striving to make Minnesota a market leader in clean steel, growing jobs and economic resiliency through innovations, like processing Minnesota taconite with green hydrogen, powered by renewable energy. The need for action is more urgent than ever, and the solutions are increasingly complex and difficult. But at Fresh Energy, we're driven by hope for the future and ambitious policy. We envision the Minnesota of the future as a place with healthy lakes and forests, accessible family-supporting jobs, and a clean energy system that powers a prosperous, equitable economy without carbon pollution. Please join us in making our Vision 2030 a reality. Together, we can do this. Well, we hope you learned more about Fresh Energy and the exciting focus for the next 5 years and feel inspired as we do about our clean energy future. We'll be sure to share more details with you and our many partners in the coming months. One partner in this work is St. Paul Mayor Melvin Carter. I'm pretty proud of this guy. I've had the honor and privilege of knowing him for almost his whole life. And I can tell you, there's nothing better for a teacher than watching a young student grow into being such a good human, civic leader, community builder, and incredible father. Having known and worked with Melvin for years, I can attest firsthand that his character, his work ethic, and collaborative spirit was formed at a very young age, and it continues today. As many of you know, the city of St. Paul is setting the pace for other cities to follow, showing what it means to be a climate action and sustainability leader. This is thanks in large part to Mayor Carter's courageous leadership, clear vision, and determined action. And if you can't tell, I'm a pretty big fan. Please join me in giving Mayor Carter a warm welcome to the stage.
Thank you so much. That fandom is certainly mutual. We thank you so much for your leadership. Good morning. Welcome to St. Paul this morning. We just want to say to our friends at Fresh Energy, thank you for your tireless work to accelerate equitable climate solutions across our entire state. Your work was critical to the legislature's significant climate action over the past 2 years, including the carbon-free electricity by 2040 policy and the creation of Minnesota's new state green bank. Fresh Energy serves a unique role in being able to work together with advocates, unions, utilities, and both sides of the aisle to advance the clean energy transition. My team is definitely excited to hear Dr. Johnson this morning. She has an amazing way of being both realistic and optimistic about what we can do together to get the climate crisis right. If we're being honest, if you're like me, sometimes I look at the news, I look at CNN, I look at the internet, and we see different iterations of sort of the same story over and over again. That story tells us that this bleak climate picture that scientists painted for us kind of in the 90s was almost right. But the impacts are happening worse and faster than they expected. And then next week, we see kind of a similar story. And sometimes for those of us who are committed to our climate work, it can be discouraging. It can feel isolating. And that's where a partnership like this is important. That's where a breakfast like this is important. That's where an organization like Fresh Energy is important, to help us remember that, one, we're not isolated. We're surrounded by community who are passionate about this same work alongside us. And that, two, we do have what it takes to stand up to this crisis. We do have what it takes to meet this moment. Every now and then I get going about climate crisis, and people look and say, well, you're not a coastal mayor. What is a inland St. Paul, Minnesota mayor doing talking about climate crisis? Sometimes we don't recognize the extent to which the experiences that we have right here in St. Paul, right here in Minnesota, are reflecting our changing climate every single day. My first year as mayor, on the last Saturday of April of 2018, we experienced a rock slide that dropped 40,000 pounds of limestone onto one of our busiest streets just across the river. I'll always remember that that was the last Saturday in April, because had it been the first Saturday in May, it could have fallen on our annual Cinco de Mayo parade, and it would have been an event of global significance. We've seen the impact that our changing freeze-thaw cycles have on the quality of our streets in our communities. We've seen the flooding of the river. We've seen wetter and drier climates. And, as someone who was born and raised in St. Paul, I learned a brand new phrase just in the last couple of years: air quality alerts. That wasn't a thing. If you've been in Minnesota for any time, you've seen our winters. Well, if you've been in Minnesota for 2 years, you've seen two fundamentally different takes on what a winter is in Minnesota. And so we're seeing those impacts. We're not seeing them necessarily as deadly as some of our colleagues across the country are, but we're seeing the costs of them. We're seeing the way they impact our lives. We're seeing the way they impact our economies. We're seeing them all over the place. That's why St. Paul is committed to all of the things that we're doing. We're committed to our EV spot network, the nation's first electric vehicle car share powered by entirely renewable energy. I'm always excited to tell our residents that if they're trying to figure out how to get to work or school, that they own over 100 electric vehicles in this community. Thank you. We're committed to our work to build the state's first networked district heating and cooling system at the Heights, a neighborhood on the east side. And we're all in St. Paul, so we're also building the state's second networked geothermal heating and cooling system at Como Zoo. We spent last week at Habitat for Humanity, or at the Heights with Habitat for Humanity, doing this Habitat for Humanity build. And I mentioned the Heights already, but I'm excited about that space because we're building affordable housing in spaces that have solar shingles. We're going to be producing solar energy on that site. I already mentioned the district heating and cooling on that site. The district, the development-wide stormwater runoff plans. These are the types of things that we're committed to in St. Paul because we know that our ability to impact our world is enormous. But we also know we can't do it by ourselves. A city like St. Paul, we're a pretty incredible city. I would even say the most incredible city on the planet. And I've got the microphone right now, so if you... But even a city as incredible as St. Paul can't change this direction by ourselves. Even a city as incredible as St. Paul requires partnerships in other cities, requires partnerships in fresh energy, requires partnerships to do this work. We've changed the face. You have been leaders in changing the face of what it means to be stewards of our environment. We're joined here today by Russ Stark, our Chief Resilience Officer for the city of St. Paul. And Russ has been sort of the green voice of conscience for our city for 2 decades now. And one of the conversations that we had a lot when we both first got elected to the city council together was I got elected kind of thinking about myself as, all the kind of traditional municipal stuff. We need jobs, and we need housing, and we need transit, and we need all the traditional municipal stuff. And when Russ would talk about our environment, our climate, I'd go, yeah, that sounds important, but we have more, I have more urgent stuff to do as we tackle the issues of disparities, as we tackle the issues of poverty, as we tackle the immediate human crises that people are facing on a day-to-day basis. And that response was rooted in a tradition that I learned growing up. I promise you, I thought environmentalism was something for rich people. Right? It was for people who could afford hemp clothing and organic food and electric vehicles and hybrid vehicles then and all the stuff that costs more money. But we've realized that our climate work will benefit the ozone layer, and it will benefit the manatees, and it will benefit the whales. But our climate work is about the people. Our climate work, thank you. Our climate work, if done right, hits home first for those low-income neighbors. Hits home first to address disparities in our communities of color. Hits home first to create opportunity. Hits home first to address the asthma rates among young black and brown children in our communities. Hits home first to ensure that we can all live the privilege, what ought to be a right, of a sustainable life together. Thank you for being a part of that work. I'm excited to have you a teammate.
Wow, thank you so much, Mayor Carter. It's just been so inspiring to watch St. Paul's leadership and well-deserved national recognition for their approach to sustainability and community engagement. From the city's innovative and community-led Climate Justice Advisory Board, and we have my colleague Janice Watts, who's here, sits on that, to the groundbreaking, as you heard, literally and figuratively, efforts underway around decarbonizing heating and cooling at Como Zoo and the Heights, to an ambitious climate action and resilience plan. The city of St. Paul really is one to watch. At this time, I'd like to invite our next two speakers up. Margaret Cherney-Hendrick, my colleague, Fresh Energy's Senior Lead of Innovation and Impact, and she'll be interviewing our featured guest, Dr. Ayana Elizabeth Johnson. Ayana is a marine biologist, policy expert, and writer known for her enthusiasm and optimism for climate solutions. She is the co-founder of the nonprofit think tank Urban Ocean Lab, and her writing has been published in the Washington Post and Scientific American. She's also the author of What If We Get It Right? Visions of Climate Futures, which swiftly became a New York Times bestseller and features thought-provoking essays and vibrant conversations at the nexus of science, policy, culture, and justice. Welcome to the stage, Ayana and Margaret.
Good morning. Hi.
Thank you, Justin, for that great introduction, and welcome, Ayana, to Minnesota. We are delighted to have you in conversation.
To be here.
And I have to admit, I have been following your book tour, which has been very high excitement, and you've been sharing the stage with some pretty infested folks lately. So Stacey Abrams at Climate Week, Jason Sudeikis with your Climate Variety Show, just to name two. And while it may be early in the morning still, I think I have a lot of confidence that this Minnesota crew here today is going to be able to match that energy. So what do we say? Are we excited for the conversation today?
I'm like very deeply not a morning person, and I'm just completely astounded by the amount of energy in this room at this hour. I mean, I can see why, though, after listening to those last few talks. I mean, there's a lot to be excited about here.
There is. Well, if you're ready, let's dive in.
Let's do it.
So you're a thought leader. You have a real gift for bringing folks together, from Bill McKibben to Rhianna Gunright to Jigar Shah. Those last two have been keynote speakers at this event, by the way, to discuss the climate crisis and the path to our clean energy future. And you did this all in your ambitious new book. And through this book, you're taking a radical new lens to the climate crisis. What if we get it right? I wonder if you could just start by giving us kind of an overview here, why you think it's important to take this different perspective on the climate crisis, and what really compelled you to write this book now.
I guess the fact that you would categorize it as radical is the reason why I think it's needed, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's radical to focus on solutions in a world where we're just constantly presented with the problem, as the mayor was mentioning, right? I mean, I think for me, I was like, we don't need another book about the problem. We don't need more documentaries about the problem. I think it's reckless for the news media to cover climate impacts without also in the same breath talking about what we could do to make things better. Because, you know, we have the solutions we need, right? if anything that we've just seen from this 2030 vision, it's a matter of like how swiftly and how justly we can achieve these goals. And I have never been in a room that's gotten so much applause for building codes. So I'm really excited to be with you. That is a remarkable vibe I've not yet experienced. I always say building codes and people just are like, and I think even just hearing geothermal in this room, my house is on geothermal, but that's not exciting as an individual. It's the district heating, the cities embracing it, the states embracing it, the energy goals. So I think, to me, the more we can focus on what's possible, I don't consider myself an optimist, which surprises a lot of people. I mean, the book title is "What If We Get It Right?" ? Like, I don't know if we're going to get it right, but I know that we could. And I think sometimes the more honest answer, the more honest title for the book is like, "What if we get it as right as possible?" Because so much has already changed. And we can't put all those greenhouse gases back in the bag in any sort of near-term sense. And so it really is a question of how do we best manage this moment? And the answer is that we have to do it together, right? Like, it is spaces like these, collaborative environments like this, that help to propel us forward. I mean, as I say in the introduction of the book, we don't actually need a more rigorous cost-benefit analysis. We just need to leap. That's what the moment calls for. Also, I just because I think you guys are my people, the cost-benefit analysis that only looks at the cost and doesn't talk about the climate benefits, the justice benefits, the avoided harms in the future is also just a completely unfair and incomplete analysis. So anytime someone's like, it's too expensive, make sure that you call them out on like, well, that's because you're not even considering all of the upsides of doing this work. Because I think we're letting people get away with that too much.
That's right. And what I appreciate about your frame is it helps us move beyond this sort of sense of paralysis and doom and gloom and motivates us towards action too, and having folks really find their place in the solutions-oriented framework of climate action. So I think we especially hear that young people today are, very disillusioned about the future, their children's future, and so it's wonderful to at least have a tool, a framework to start to change that conversation.
One thing that's maybe worth mentioning for those of you who've seen the book, each section opens with this double spread of blue pages. This is actually, I just happened to open to the changing the rules section. And each section starts with a quote. Here it's, what we pay attention to grows. So I'm thinking about how we grow what we are all imagining and creating into something large enough and solid enough that it becomes a tipping point, which is something Adrienne Marie Brown said in her book, Emergent Strategy. And it's just, you can feel that energy in this room, right? This tipping point. But I opened to this section because I think the way that I laid out the book, each section opens with a list of 10 problems and 10 possibilities. Because I think we always need to talk about those things together, right? Side by side, the minuses and the pluses, the ways that we can adapt, the ways that we can become more resilient, the ways that we can better take care of each other as we go through this inflection point for humanity, is kind of how I get my head around it. So while, I'm perhaps too much of a scientist to be an optimist, or maybe too much of a cynic about a lot of humanity actually getting it together and collaborating generously, which doesn't always happen. I know the word that I can lean into if there's anyone in the room who's not an optimist, it's okay. We can do the work anyway. We can do the actions anyway without any promise of success. My personal thing is it's okay if you're not hopeful as long as you're being useful.
Yeah.
Just forget about the hope part and just keep moving.
That's wonderful. I wonder if we could touch on a couple of other themes that come up often in your book, and these are in the sections on community foremost and follow the money. And this is around climate equity and equitable investments. And I especially like the compilation of interviews that you have in these sections that really dig deep on equity and justice. And I'm wondering if you could just chat with us a little bit about how we can ensure that the solutions that we're moving forward to the climate crisis don't leave anyone behind. You know, are there any examples of communities that you've encountered as you've put together this book that are already getting this right?
Sounds like St. Paul's doing a pretty good job.
I'll say.
You know, obviously there's more work to be done, but I mean that sincerely, right? Like, these initiatives matter, and proving that a city in the Midwest can really take this on, a state in the Midwest can not only take this on, but lead on it, is extremely important. Two things come to mind when I think about justice in this context of the work that you all are doing. One is a phrase that Colette Pichon-Battle taught me, who is a leader of an organization in the Gulf South called Taproot Earth, mostly organizing Black communities around climate justice. And she refers to justly sourced clean energy, not just clean energy, period, because there's actually ways to do it wrong, so that not everyone can afford it, so that not everyone has access to it, so that the materials that we're using to have this clean energy have huge health impacts on some communities, and workers' rights impacts on some communities. And so we just really need to keep our eye on the entire supply chain as we're thinking about this. And obviously, not all of that supply chain is here in Minnesota, so it requires this global outlook. But something much more specific comes to mind, thinking about looking at these 10 problems and possibilities for this community foremost section, that because of climate change, places are dealing with things that they never had to deal with before, like heat waves, right? In the US, there are about 36,000 public schools that lack adequate cooling and ventilation systems to deal with extreme heat. And so heat waves are increasingly leading to school closures. That's something that Minnesota probably didn't really have to deal with in the past. And now in September and June, the weather is so different. So I think a lot about how our education system needs to adapt to the changing climate in ways that we might not have thought about like that, but also, you know, getting it right in the clean energy sector, making sure that workers here in the state are treated well in this transition. And because things like the Inflation Reduction Act, which has many wonderful tax credits for homeowners, didn't really focus on renters, benefits for renters, it's important for states and the federal government to think about filling that gap, especially for people who aren't eligible for tax credits because they don't have a tax burden, because they don't make enough money. So making sure that we're thinking about things like that. Like, I'm thrilled that I installed solar panels this year and will get a tax credit for that. But if you don't own your home and can't afford that initial output of the down payment, then that doesn't help you at all. So making sure that we keep an eye on that as well is certainly important.
Great. No, I appreciate that. And with Fresh Energy, we're also taking an eye to sort of understanding what we haven't done right historically with energy transitions. And that has been a lot of top-down policy that hasn't involved community voices, hasn't involved impacted communities. And so really making an effort to try to make sure that we're, from a process perspective, inviting folks to be at the table to craft those policies that are going to impact them most. So what you're saying really resonates.
It's exciting to also hear about the expansion to agriculture and heavy industries in the strategy, right?
Yes.
I mean, this is news to you, a lot of you too, which I think is so important, especially looking to the Midwest as a leader potentially on shifting in agricultural practices. A lot of what we hear when we talk about climate and agriculture is regenerative practices, which I'm very excited about, but which are not necessarily going to get us the carbon reductions that we're hoping for. And so thinking about how to decarbonize that sector, I mean, the tractors use a lot of oil and gas, right? The transportation of it all, there's so much fossil fuel use in that industry that people are just thinking about the soil and not also that other part. So I'm just really really excited that you all are tackling that. And heavy industry is considered potentially the hardest sector to decarbonize. So kudos to you all for not shying away from the really tricky parts of this as well.
No, I appreciate that. And we weren't joking when the conversations are going to get harder. And we're looking to you all, our partners in this work, to be able to lean in and try to work together to find those sort of alignments to be able to move forward with these solutions. It's going to be a challenge. And I wonder now if we could kind of pivot a little bit to talking about technology and policy a little more deeply. And I think we heard it from Brenda Castellius and also from yourself in this book that we hear so often that climate solutions are wholly dependent on both technological innovation and strong policy frameworks. But you argue, I think, really well in your book that we already have developed many of the technology solutions that we'll need to combat the climate crisis. So I'm wondering if you could dig in a little bit and just elaborate on this point. And if this is indeed the case, which I think we agree to, what do you see as the most important policies that we'll need to accelerate the energy transition? So both in the Midwest and nationally.
So oftentimes I think what slows us down is people think we're like waiting for some magical new tech thing before we can do this. Yeah. Like we can't actually go to 100% clean energy until we have small-scale nuclear everywhere, or until fusion is a thing that's viable at a commercial scale, right? And I think so many people just don't understand that we have the solutions we need, right? From building codes to geothermal to just the variety of clean energies that are now available to us, to thinking about transportation options changing, to thinking about energy efficiency, which doesn't often get a lot of excitement, but if we can be more efficient, that means we have to build a lot less renewable. To thinking about just how we protect and restore ecosystems, that nature is something like a third plus of the solution we need. That very often gets left out of the conversation. And as an ecologist, I'm always like, also nature, also the ocean. And I think that's where I see the opportunity, is looking at the full spectrum of solutions we already have, and exciting people about moving those forward. And the types of policies that takes there's a wide range. And often it's not even new policies, it's just implementation. Like, what if we reached Minnesota's clean energy goal early? Like, what if we were like 2040 is so far away? Let's do it by 2035. Let's do it by 2030, right? I think it really is a question of how quickly and how justly, as opposed to whether we can.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you cite a really staggering statistic in your book where 75% of the infrastructure that we'll need to do the clean energy transition right hasn't been built yet.
It's even more stark, actually. 75% of the infrastructure that will exist in 2050 has yet to be built.
Yeah.
And that either could be part of the clean energy transition and transportation and buildings transition, or not.
Yeah.
And so everything we build is an opportunity to create the future that we want to live in. And that statistic totally knocked my socks off. It made me really think about how much possibility there is. And part of that, I think, is as the daughter of an architect, I was literally raised to see the world as something that we're building and deciding about. And those decisions can also be ugly or beautiful. So one of the questions, the what if questions I pose in the book, which is really a question to myself, is what if climate solutions are beautiful? What if climate adaptation is beautiful? Like, that is a choice we could also embrace. And I think that's really exciting and maybe a way to lure more and more people into this work. If we think about the design piece of it as opposed to merely the functionality, because it doesn't cost more necessarily to build something elegant. Yeah. It just takes some thought.
Absolutely. Now I have to ask, you mentioned implementation, and I just love this. In your book, you say that implementation is the sexiest word in the English language.
I stand by this.
Yes, and I don't know how.
Anyone agree with me?
Let's see. Well, Fresh Energy definitely agrees with you, and implementation is a really key element to our new strategic framework. And
Yeah.
so I wonder if you could just chat with us about what the word means to you and why you think it's so important.
I mean, there's a lot of talking. There's a lot of talkers. There's not a lot of enough doers. And so what I think about is, and what I've actually, on this book tour, this is exactly the halfway point of the book tour, although I keep being tempted to add new stops. I just met someone from the Field Museum in Chicago and was like, maybe Chicago needs to be part of this. So I've come to see my role as welcomer. That is the first word in the introduction of my book, is welcome. This is a book about possibility and transformation, because I feel like the implementation question is really a question of how can we build the biggest, strongest team where everyone is using their skills, their resources, their networks, their superpowers to make this change. And so anything that we can all do to be more inclusive, that word is used often now in the sense of racial and economic equity, which I fully embrace. But when I say inclusive, I just mean like literally we need everyone.
Yeah.
And so the more people from your community, from your workplace, from your places of worship, from your sports fandoms, from all of that you can bring into, I mean, we're in a sports building, which people would say like, Ayana, you said sports building. That means you clearly are out of touch. Which is true. I'm completely out of touch with many, many things in popular culture. But I think that's the challenge to us is, being as welcoming as we can so that the implementation can accelerate.
Great. Well, I think we have time for one more question, and I really want to sort of move the conversation into the sphere of, helping people to situate themselves within, climate action. How can we get involved? Your book presents, as you already mentioned, a joyfully pragmatic view of the future by saying, what if we act as if we love the future?
That's my favorite question. What if we act as if we love the future? What would we do differently if we had that mindset, which is such a simple question. But the number one, I'm sorry to interrupt your question, but there's this statistic that I found so shocking and wonderful, that this polling result, when advocating for climate action, it is love for protecting future generations that's the biggest motivator. 12 times more popular than job creation or economic growth. That really is what is getting people to roll up their sleeves. And I think for people like me who come out of a more academic, rigorous scientific training, I've always thought that was kind of corny and putting it off into the future, to have it be for our children, for future generations that we're pointing to, because it's now. But if that is most people's motivation, I think we really have to embrace that. And why have I been resisting that love is the motivation? Like, come on, if that's what it is, let's just do it, right?
Yeah. Absolutely. A couple other statistics that you cite: 62% of US adults feel they have a personal responsibility to reduce global warming, and yet 51% say they don't know where to start, which is a pretty stunning number. So I know that you don't think having hope is enough, neither do we. So what advice would you give people who want to get involved? And I wonder if you could start by stepping through this amazing Venn diagram. I think this is the most important figure that you have in your book. Love a Venn diagram. But just helping folks to kind of situate themselves and how to move beyond the paralysis, beyond the sort of apocalyptic view of what's coming, into a solutions-oriented framework.
So yeah, three simple circles. What are you good at? Those skills, resources, and networks. I find that this is actually the circle people have the most trouble with, because we tend to be really hard on ourselves. Like, I'm not really that good at anything. So be generous with yourselves as you think about this. And the skills that are needed are not just engineering and politics, right? We need the party planners, we need the web developers, we need the administrators, we need the project managers, we need the bus drivers, like the teachers, we really need everybody. We need the PTA presidents, right? Like this really is, think about where you have influence, which spheres of influence you have, because we all have some. What work needs doing, I think everyone in this room is pretty clear on that. And I added the what brings you joy because this is the work of our lifetimes. So finding ways to enjoy our work, not just be giddy and skipping and giggling all the time, not this like very American pursuit of happiness as if that could actually be a constant state of being. We can be humans with a full range of emotions, of course, in this work, but we have to have it be punctuated by at least feeling the sense of gratification in our work. Otherwise, even if you are good at the thing and it needs doing and then you're miserable and then no one wants to work with you and then we don't build the biggest, strongest team, that won't necessarily be your highest and best use, yes. So finding that sweet spot will be different for everyone, right? Like I, as a marine biologist and policy nerd, Brooklyn native who loves design and finds joy in changing the rules of the game in the policy sense, starting Urban Ocean Lab, this think tank for the future of coastal cities, made sense for me, but obviously that's not what everyone should be doing. And I think it's been a weakness of the environmental movement to encourage everyone to do the same generic list of things. You know, vote, protest, donate, spread the word, lower your carbon footprint. And yes, please continue to do those things. I do all of that. But if we only focus on ourselves as individuals and not how we can change the larger systems, then that won't be enough. And so for the people who are not in this room, who you want to lure into the sexiness of implementation, help them think through that piece, because people often get caught up on just the household, individual piece of things instead of finding their role in the broader efforts. And so one thing I offered in this book at the end is to join something, so help others think about what they can join. And this opportunity to contribute to an existing effort. Oftentimes people immediately think, oh, I have to quit my job and go start a nonprofit. I'm like, absolutely not. Please change the place where you already work. Please use the leverage you already have. But the thing that came to me as I was just listening to the opening remarks today was there's this list of 8 things, but number 4 and 5 stuck out to me. So 1, keep showing up. 2, find your superpowers. 3, join something. 4 is find your people. Like, who's your climate squad? When someone asked me that a few months ago, I had this immediate reaction that my people are conjurers. They don't stop at dreaming. They make something where there was nothing, something that was needed. They make magic in the real world. And it truly gives me goosebumps to be able to say that honestly. And I think a lot of us in this room can say that, which is very special. And so this is where I get to say, support your people and love them and lean into possibility together. And the other one I'll share is number 5, be a problem solver. Not just complaining about the problem, but rolling up your sleeves. I mean, I moved to Maine 2 years ago, in part because I was like, oh, these people are practical problem solvers. If I had come to Fresh Energy 2 years ago, I might have moved to Minnesota instead.
We'd love to have you.
But I feel like what I wrote is this moment in history requires a relentless, tenacious focus on solutions. And then number 6, choose your battles. 7, nourish joy. And 8, love nature, which is a Rachel Carson quote. Those who contemplate the beauty of the earth find reserves of strength that will endure as long as life lasts. So I just wanted to offer that up to you all.
I think that's a wonderful note to end on. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. I know I found, yes. I personally found your book to be immensely inspiring, and I know I speak for myself and the group when I say we've truly enjoyed being able to dig into the book's themes with you today. And it's really refreshing to challenge ourselves to engage with the climate crisis from this perspective, a perspective that dares us to focus on solutions, as you said, to do as much as we can to get it as right as possible, and all with a sense of humor. So Ayana, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Go this way?
Again, I want to say one more thanks to Ayana, and I can't impress enough. If you have not picked up her new book, please do. I think this is required reading at this point. It's inspiring, it's timely, and again, we just want to thank Ayana for putting this out in the world. So, on a personal note, Ayana's conviction that we can't just give up on the future of life on this planet or on each other really resonates with me. If you haven't already guessed, my wife and I are expecting our second child. Yes, thank you. We are equal parts excited and terrified, which I hear is fairly normal. But in this line of work, I'm often asked how I can justify bringing children into this world in the midst of the climate crisis. Now, putting the rather jarring nature of this question aside, my response has always been that it's too early to give up, that we desperately need this and the next generation to take action and to be hopeful for the future of life on this earth. I am fighting for my daughters and the next generation to inherit a world where we are well on the way to solving the climate crisis. And I know I'm not alone, as we have more than 800 people registered to join this important conversation this morning, which is truly inspiring in and of itself. So thank you for joining us. And if you're here this morning, you also believe that this is one of the biggest, if not the biggest, challenges that we face today. And you're also here because you trust that by supporting fresh energy, you're helping to fight the climate crisis. And I can tell you that is absolutely true. At Fresh Energy, we are all deeply driven and compelled to do this work. And we're taking it on with the clear-eyed understanding that some elements of the energy transition are just going to get harder and harder. But we can't afford not to act. And Fresh Energy is here to take on the hard things. Our vision for the clean energy future actually depends upon it. Fresh Energy is bold and brave, and this should give you hope. I know as a parent, it gives me hope. And now I want to share a video that we've made with some friends of Fresh Energy who also believe in supporting Fresh Energy's ambitious goals. After the video, you'll hear a few words from Fresh Energy Power Circle donor Lane Ayers. He is a longtime supporter of Fresh Energy and is also passionate about fighting climate change. Thank you so much.
Our changing climate is important to our family. I am concerned for my children, my grandchildren, and everyone's children and grandchildren. And I think we all can get bogged down feeling that it's overwhelming with the support of community and organizations like Fresh Energy. You realize that we all can do something. The thing about Fresh Energy and why we support it is that it helps us with our individual actions, but it also helps us contribute to an organization that has the bigger capacity to actually affect policy, affect legislation, and all of these things are required and necessary, but I as an individual can't fix it. And work in a positive way towards a shared, better future.
McKnight supports Fresh Energy because the policy and advocacy work that Fresh Energy does is so critical to rewriting the rules of the systems that we work within. If groups like Fresh Energy are not engaged in those processes, we risk not getting the rules right and baking in harm and long-term systemic impacts that actually don't address the climate crisis at the speed and scale that they need to be addressed. So it's critically important that groups like Fresh Energy are at the table, are bringing partners to the table, and are advancing ambitious and equitable climate solutions. That is what is going to create the enabling environment for all of the change that needs to happen at a pace that we have not seen in our history. And I really believe that it's groups who are creating that enabling environment like Fresh Energy that are going to help us create the first just transition in our history. The more we invest now, the more ability we'll have to prevent worsening effects in the future. And the more we delay those investments, the harder it's going to be for us to catch up 10, 15, 20 years down the road. We're already seeing those impacts, and it's critically important that we act now. And I know that folks at Fresh Energy are focused on that every day, and that's what gives me hope, is knowing that we have the ability to actually change history and change the trajectory of the climate crisis, and I'm grateful to groups like Fresh Energy for helping get us there.
ASAP and Fresh Energy supported a policy that we know is clean lighting, and what clean lighting does is it phases out the sale of fluorescent lighting at the state level. So what that meant is we were able to pass the clean lighting bill in the larger climate and energy package that advanced through the legislature this year with a lot of support on both sides of the aisle. Working with Fresh Energy, we were really able to identify partner groups that supported the legislation. We were able to identify legislators that could be champions for the clean lighting bill, and I really view Fresh Energy as the group that got this done. Most of the fluorescents that we see are in places like schools and places like office buildings, and so it's really important that we protect the health of workers, protect the health of kids who are going to school. Clean lighting is just the start. I'm really excited to see how the partnership with Fresh Energy evolves going forward.
I really appreciate the expertise that Fresh Energy brings to this work. I am not a subject matter expert. You know, I know what I want on this earth, but I don't know how to get there. And so I really appreciate that is what Fresh Energy brings to the table. I think there's a lot of fear around the climate crisis in what will come. The issue of climate change touches my heart when I think about my children. I know that young people don't just automatically assume that they're going to have an earth that will support themselves and their families and their children. I definitely want to have a legacy that says I was a part of doing what I can to support a sustainable earth. Because without hope, we don't have action. Without hope, we don't have engagement. If I get involved, if I do my part, if I am a part of an organization that is doing their part, then we can work together and have something that will sustain our lives and the lives of generations to come.
Wow, thanks for that wonderful video and for each of the incredible parts of this morning's program. So I want to thank the friends who were on the video, some of whom are here with us this morning and shared their story so nicely. Okay, you've all been standing, or I just got up here, but you've all been sitting for quite a while. So I'm wondering if you do something for me, if you'll humor me and stand up when I say something that applies to you. Okay, can we do that? First, please stand up if you have solar on the roof of your house or your business. Okay, stand up and stay standing. Now stand up if you have a heat pump or an induction stove. Stand up if you've ever thought when you're going to a meeting or an errand, oh, I think I'll take the bus or bike instead of driving. Next, stand up if you drive an electric vehicle. Please stand up if you make choices about energy conservation on a regular basis. And finally, stand up, we're probably all standing almost now, stand up if you want the world to be free from pollution and powered by clean energy. So So look around. Look at the people at your table and all the tables here. Isn't this inspiring? Okay, now you can sit back down. I know that sometimes it's easy to feel like I'm the only person or I'm the only family. How can I make a difference? But when you see the bigger picture of everyone doing their part, standing together like we just did, our collective action can move mountains. There are so many opportunities in our energy transition, and we all need to find what actions fit best for us. I like to think of it this way. Each of us has the chance to create the climate chapter of our own legacy. Now, for me personally, the how and why behind creating my own legacy is something I've been thinking a lot about recently. I am so passionate about fresh energy. And the main reason that I'm passionate about fresh energy is that I'm a grandparent. I love kids, and I love especially my grandkids. In fact, today is my granddaughter Harriet's 13th birthday. Yeah, today. Today, she's 13. You know, I used to think, and you probably did too, that the climate crisis would only affect future generations. But it's clear now that we are already seeing the impacts of climate change all around us every day. So I want this to be part of my legacy, creating a better future for Harriet and the other kids growing up today, and all the kids that will come after us. You know, we build our legacy through action, not just intention. And if we work together, we can make an impact that's bigger than ourselves. Everyone in this room is doing their part, but we also need the policies that are created on the national, the state, and the local levels to drive down emissions so that we can equitably meet our goals. That is Fresh Energy's commitment to all of us today. So, here's your opportunity. Join me in growing your own climate legacy by making an investment in fresh energy today. Make a donation that feels good to you. There's a minimum suggested donation of $125, and that gift, or a gift of any amount, will certainly help. But we have a match on the table today. If you're able to invest $250 or more, other generous donors, many in this room, will match your gift. Or maybe you have the ability to give $500. Or perhaps you could join my wife, Marion, and me at the Power Circle level with a gift of $1,000, $5,000, or more. Those gifts will also be matched today. So please make a generous donation, one that will allow you to talk to your loved ones and assure them that you understand the urgency and that you are doing everything you can. Okay, table captains, now's the time to pass out the pledge cards. You know, through I'll finish up by saying, through the gifts that you and I give to Fresh Energy, we are acting on our intentions, and we are creating the climate chapter of our own legacy. I want to thank you all for coming here today. And Harriet, happy birthday, teenager.
All right, we're going to wrap this up. I want to close us out with a final thank you to all of our speakers, our video participants, and of course our sponsors and table captains. And the largest thank you to all of you here in the room and watching online. We appreciate you showing up today, being generous with your time and your treasure, and taking meaningful action for climate change. Together, we can do this. Table captains, please turn your packets in where you pick them up. And for everybody, a final reminder that Fair of the Future will run until 11 o'clock, so don't feel like you need to rush out by any means. Thank you so much, and have a wonderful day.